Good evening. The Town of East Fishkill Planning Board will come to order. Have a roll call, and this will be by name. Jason?
Here.
Michael O'Brien?
Here.
Lori G?
Present.
Richard Campbell?
Here.
John Eichman?
Here.
Ed Miyoshi?
Here.
And Craig Smith here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Justice for all.
Good evening, and we welcome you to the Planning Board session. As COVID-19 has interrupted our way we normally run our Planning Board sessions, but we're delighted that we can do this via Zoom to keep some of our key businesses moving forward. And so with that, our upcoming meeting dates are May 19th and June 9th. We have minutes for approval, but from February the 18th, I'm going to put those on hold. So we're going to get started right into first. We have three businesses coming forward tonight for discussion, and we'll start off with Global Foundries.
So I would ask that anybody from Global Foundries, please raise your hand. There should be an option at the bottom of your screen to do so, and then I'll invite you to become a panelist. And if you're calling from a phone, if you hit star 69, it should raise your hand if this is your matter.
Can you hear me, Michael?
I can hear you.
Mick O'Callahan, can you hear me?
I unmuted him just now.
Okay.
Okay, you probably need Robert Newhart and Mick O'Callahan both unmuted.
They're both unmuted.
Okay.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Mick.
Great. Thank you.
So I'll just kick it off by saying that Robert Newhart and Mick O'Callahan, Michael O'Callahan, representing Global Foundries, and we are glad that the planning board was able to do this and find everybody in good health here. So glad for that. We'd like to proceed with the next step there for the site plan approval for the Building 320B post-fab infrastructure upgrade for Global Foundries, which is being set up to accommodate the future on semiconductor post-fab operations that will be operated at the East Fishkill facility. So Mick Callahan is the project manager for the Building 320B upgrade, and he will take us through the updates, and he has a presentation that he will give relative to 320B. I should point out this morning, Scott Bryant was good enough to work with his team there and make arrangements for us to converse with and dialogue with his building code consultant, Martin Rogers from town of Cortland. And we went over some of the building code compliance parameters and the variance that we will need, the process for the variance that we will need there for the exhaust system penetrating a 2-hour firewall system. So with that, I will hand it over to Mick, and he can take you through the presentation that he's got prepared. It is an update to what you saw back in February.
So I saw it flash on the screen earlier in the meeting. Do you want me to share, or is that does somebody else have got that presentation?
So Michael, what do you want Mick to go in presentation mode, or does Michelle want to present it?
Michelle will put it on the screen, and then Mick can start presenting based on what Michelle posts.
Great, thank you. Okay. So this is a quick update on further to our previous presentation on February 18th. So basically, if you want to go to the next slide, Michelle. So we showed this during our last presentation. This is just a reminder. So basically, the B320B building is north of center there on the Global Foundries site. You can see Route 52 on the north, iPark Boulevard on the east side. We've got the I-84 on the south, just in case anybody's in any doubt of the location of the building. Next slide. Similar layout, so we can skip this one, Michelle. Okay, so basically the shaded pink area is the building itself. It's flanked by building 310 on the east side and building 321 on the west side. We also are in the process of converting the old 322 building to the southwest corner of the subject building into a parking lot. That's just kind of a localized layout plan. Next slide. So we showed this the last time as well. So just as a reminder, basically the shaded pink area is the new addition. Basically the overall height is just above 50 feet, so it's 50 foot 8 inches. And the new proposed addition is 10 feet above the existing parapet level. It projects out across the front of the building by a little bit, about 8 feet. You can see those columns drop to the ground level just in the front of the south elevation of the building. Any questions on this one? Okay, good. So since our last meeting, we have progressed with our 3D model of the 320B building. I just wanted to give a perspective of what that looks like relative to the previous drawing that we showed. It's pretty similar there, as you can see. What you don't see on the other drawing is basically the building is flanked by multiple utility trestles. Those gray elongated rectangles there that you see up on posts, they carry the site utilities to and from the various buildings. So you can see that the addition is actually in behind those trestles. But that kind of gives you a BIM model review or a view of the south elevation of the structure. Next slide. So again, this is another shot, a 3D model view from the southeast corner. Again, you can see kind of the perspective of the building there and what the addition is going to look like. Again, you can see that it projects slightly above the existing roof by that 10 feet that I spoke of, and that kind of gives you an idea of conceptually what the building is going to look like. The next,
Nick, I'm
yes?
sorry, how do we ask questions during this? Is there like a hand raise or something like that we can do? Or, well, at any rate, the question is, what's in that space now where those tracks will go? Is that vacant land?
Where are you speaking of, Michael? Which part?
I'm asking about the new tracks that are coming out. What's there now?
So basically, we're not demoing anything along the south elevation of the building in order to accommodate the structure. So basically, those posts that drop down from the new penthouse, they will be nestled in amongst existing utilities. There are below ground utilities for sure in the footprint of the building. So basically, we are going to install this new penthouse in vacant, it is vacant pretty much from a construction perspective.
Okay, thank you.
What Michael's asking though, what are these gray tracks that come out beyond the actual building.
Oh, gotcha. Okay. So they are utility trestles. So basically, what they carry all of our utilities to this building. So what we have is we have central utility buildings, you know, for large DI water supply. We don't make the likes of deionized water in this building itself. We take it from our central utilities building. So
I think the question is, are these new, is this new construction or this is previously existing?
this is all existing. So basically that new addition that you see there, that kind of a hatched appearance, that is the only new part of the structure. Everything else is existing.
So the gray tracks already exist, all these existing feeds.
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Mick, today, aren't they pretty much just exposed pipe?
Yes, they are.
Okay, so now they're going to be enclosed in?
No, they're not, and that is a little bit misleading. So basically, when we model something for utility runs that are existing, and if they're when they're grouped together, they're kind of shown as a box. So my apologies on that. That is a little bit misleading, but they're open structures with utilities sitting on them effectively.
Okay, thank you. Sorry.
Yeah, so Michael, all the existing utilities, they're going to remain. There's going to be no changes to that. And like Mick said, carries the DI water return, the high temp hot water for heating, the chilled water for air conditioning, and they all have a return. The electrical feeds for the buildings are carried on there. The domestic water, every commodity that we use is either on that trestle or under the ground, most of them being on the trestle.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions on this one? Okay. So this view here, it takes a slice off the top of the roof of the new addition, the new penthouse addition. So you can see there, basically, we are populating this with new utilities in order to support the new clean room area below. So you can see this is pretty well populated right now. You know, you got different shades of color in here. They kind of represent different types of equipment. So, you know, we've got scrubbed exhaust systems over there to the right-hand side of the picture. You know, we've got new recirc air units. So basically, because it's clean room, we're going to supply clean room air to the clean air to the area below. And we also, as I mentioned before, DI water. So we've got a new DI water skid. So what that is, the DI water comes in on the trestle that we spoke of, and it gets an additional polish in this area. So we need an area for a skid for that purpose. And we also have some other, you know, bits and pieces of utilities in here, like, you know, booster pumps and a few things like that. So you can see this is pretty well populated, and this is all to support the new clean room area below. That kind of a solid L-shaped yellow area that you see, that's a move-in path. So basically, you can kind of see an overhead door to the left-hand side of the picture, southwest corner, we'll say. That's where we would move these utilities into the building. And that yellow band allows us to move equipment to and fro in this space and install it effectively. So that kind of gives you an idea of the purpose of this this addition and what it's going to house. Any questions on that? Okay. So that kind of gives me a segue into the overall view of level 2 of both the new penthouse and the existing penthouses on the building. So basically, again, that box you see on the kind of southwest corner of the page, with all the colors in it, that's the area that we looked at previously with the roof taken off it. But west of that, again, I think we spoke about this in the last meeting. So that's actually vacant space that we're not touching. So that big gray mass on the left-hand side of the sheet, that's existing vacant space that we're really not doing an awful lot with. And we probably will cut through it with a corridor to link the two buildings. But other than that, there's nothing really going on that side of the building. And what we do have is on the extreme left-hand side of the page, you can see there are two boxes. And what they are is outdoor switchgear, outdoor generators. One of them is going to be installed now. The other one is a future. So basically, that's the only other scope that we're going to install on the outside of the building. going back to the inside of the building again, as I say, you know, this kind of shows it, and it's work in progress. We're populating this model with all of the existing utilities throughout the building. You know, it's quite an old building. We don't have a lot of good records, so we're utilizing this model in order to build our records of the entire building and utilities therein. So that's pretty much a view of what the overall level 2 layout looks like. So this is level 1 down below. Okay, so basically the lighter areas are, so you can see on the kind of left of center on the bottom of the page there. That's the new clean room that we're converting current vacant space. So the new addition, the penthouse, this is what sits below. So that's the space there that's going to become new clean room, and that's the area that we're trying to support with this new addition. So there are a bunch of new tools. This is going to be full of tools. You can kind of see little footprints of various boxes and lines in there. They're all the new tools that are going in that space. There are some other light shaded areas. They're just alterations of existing clean room that we're doing a little bit of work in. But you know, for this purpose, we're focusing on that vacant space, which sits below the new addition on the level 2. And that's pretty much it for the information that we have right now. I know there were some requests for other information. We're working on an IBM groundwater soil investigation report. We're also working on a perimeter security plan with some upgrades for gate modifications, guardhouse, etc., and also an upgraded parking lot plan with drainage calculations. I know that's been requested as well by Scott and Michelle there. So we plan on having all of that information over to the authority by May 1st. We'll also have after the really good meeting we had today with Scott there and Martin Rogers. You know, we will have the modified code study back for review within a week. So we're making good progress on that front.
Yep. The other thing, Mick, you might want to mention too is that Jacobs, you submitted their trip generation report that Michelle had requested, and
That's correct.
Michelle, I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at that and see if you had any questions at this point.
I did look at it. Let me read the results to the planning board. So essentially there were 72 AM trips and 63 PM trips coming from the proposed use. The AM peak hour is 5:30 to 6:30. So that will probably largely be off any of the other peak around at the same time. But the PM peak would probably coincide with the Route 52 PM peak because it's between 5:30 and 6:30.
The other couple comments that I'll make before there's any additional questions that you might want to ask is that the parking lot that Mick referred to, that will be in that, I'll call it the courtyard between building 323, 322, where the building was demolished, and we'll be putting a new parking lot over top of it, and 320B, the subject building. That parking lot we've already got approval to do the one section, and then we've got to go back to Scott and Michelle in advance of review of the IBM groundwater report to get your permission to go forward with the balance of that parking lot construction that would go over the existing foundation for building 322, which will provide the additional parking that's required for Global Foundries with the additional folks in 320B plus the other existing buildings.
So do you have new employees coming in, not just to the new construction then, but to other buildings as well? That's what it sounded like you said?
No, the reason I phrased it that way is that right now, the existing Global Foundries employees have permission, and we're paying rent to iPark to park on their parking lot to the south and to the north of that building. There's roughly 100 new employees that would be employed in this particular building once the project is 100% complete.
Okay. So Michelle, I mean, the trip gen didn't sound hugely impactful to me. Is there any concern there?
No, it's just that we've been asked by DOT to start tracking the number of trips that are created by the uses in the 52 corridor and on the IPART parcel.
Okay. It just seems like this particular one doesn't sound like a huge impact.
No, there's about 100 employees, but they're on shift. So I think that the largest number of trips would be created actually in the PM peak, and that'd be 63 probably because there's only 50 on each shift, but you have some overlap with people going back, you know, exchanging when they're changing shifts.
Okay.
The exemption for the fire thing, can you tell us a little more about that, with how that's going to proceed?
I think you're referring to the variance that I talked about in the beginning,
Yes, I'm
Michael.
sorry, I said exemption, I meant variance.
Yes, we discussed that with Scott and with Martin Rogers this morning, and there is an exhaust system that would handle the exhaust for the building is broken up into two parts, the north half and the south half. There's a 2-hour firewall that goes down the middle. So we'd have to proceed with an variance with the Department of State to say that it's okay to penetrate that firewall with an exhaust system.
Okay, so it goes straight to the Department of State for New York State. There's no intervening reviews or anything like that. It just goes.
Well, yeah, Scott will review it and he will make his recommendation, I believe, Scott, with input there from Martin Rogers once the variance request is professionally prepared. Is that correct, Scott?
Yeah, pretty much sums it up. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we have Jacobs Engineering preparing that right now, that submission.
So is there like anything that you're waiting on that in any way is construction being gated?
So at the last meeting, you know, you kindly gave us permission to proceed with the demolition and the foundations, you know, for the structure. So that keeps us moving, you know, so we have, you know, we're not impacted yet by any decision by the planning board. So thank you for that, that help there. So we're still moving along.
And how much of that has been completed? What percentage do you feel has been completed from then till now?
So we've been pretty much in the planning stage. So basically, we've been going out to bid with our contractors for the work. There are a few constraints that we have. So basically, you know, like in a building of this nature, we have some abatement of, you know, asbestos, like you know, in the old vinyl tiles in the floor, things like that. So we got to remove all of that to facilitate the actual demolition of the structure. So basically, and the floor slab structure. So we're probably in the region of about 2 to 3 weeks away from actually demoing that slab, and we roll right into foundation straight after that.
And how long do you think your demolition will take once you start?
So let's say 3 weeks to start, and about maybe a week to 2 weeks then to complete that phase of construction. And then we roll straight into foundations. If we can proceed with the foundations, we maintain our current schedule.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think if I remember correctly, you gave us your kindly permission to proceed with that demolition and I believe the construction of the new floor slab.
Yes, the foundations, Bob. That was what was agreed.
What was the last part? I remember the demolition. What was the last part, Bob?
The concrete foundation.
I just recall demolition.
Yeah. Same.
But I don't know how we would have started with the foundations without having the plans approved.
Maybe I misunderstood. but
Maybe
Nick,
we misunderstood.
so if it's demolition, then it's just demolition then.
Yeah, and based off of the timeline that Mick just expressed, we should be right at the next meeting for moving you forward for your foundation pour.
Okay.
So we will work closely with Scott and Michelle, and if we need to make an adjustment to our meeting schedule to align, we can make that a possible option.
Great. Thank you for that offer. That's
And let me
helpful.
just ask, whether or not you get the variance or successful has no bearing on the foundation, right?
That's correct.
Pun intended.
Mick, you have, are these generators, there are two new generators, backup generators for this building?
That's correct. Well, we're installing one. The second one may be a future for sometime in the future. You know, it could be 2 years, could be 5 years, you know, depending on, you know, if we decide to do something else with, say, for example, that west vacant space, you know, that if we were ever decided to fit that area out, it would need its own backup generator.
Okay.
And, you know, it may well happen, you know, but all we're doing is planning for space right now. We're not actually going to install a second generator. We're just going to install one for this edition.
And have you already calculated what the net new electrical load into that building is going to be?
Yes, well, yes, we have. That generator is a 2,000 kilowatt.
And I apologize if we asked this at the last meeting. Did we talk about any hazardous substances or storage of any hazardous substances for the new building? Is there anything there we need to discuss?
We are working on that right now. So basically, you know, with the new tool set and basically the new tools in the new showroom area, the vacant space. So basically, we will have the additional requirements for chem storage. So we currently have chem rooms in the building. We just need to look at some additional storage space for drums, etc. And you know, we will be reviewing that with Scott and Michelle in the coming weeks, basically, as we develop those plans. In fact, I think we've tentatively scheduled a meeting for May 5th with Scott there and Martin Rogers, just to review where we're at and the progress prints for chem storage.
And Mick, I'll just make one slight comment to what you just said. I would categorize those spaces there where the chem will be as a staging area. We have our own existing, which you're familiar with, chemical storage building there that's set up specifically for the longer term storage there of the chemicals and chemical waste. That's building 304 and building 309. So the chemical storage area that Mick referred to would be just really like a 1 or 2 day staging area for the chemicals.
Okay. Scott, does that require then, or Michelle, any additional permitting or anything as part of our process?
I don't know, was Nancy
Not-
about this yet?
I'm not aware of any, Lori, but I will look into it.
Okay, thank you.
And Mick, from the operation of the clean room, the exhaust from the building, is there anything from an emissions perspective that we should be concerned about?
So we're working through that, and the purpose of this addition is for the abatement of that exhaust. So basically, and it's really strict. So the actual performance of these scrubbers it's 99% removal of any sort of HPM in the exhaust system. So it's extremely strict, and it's a permitted a unit. So that is one of the main purposes for this addition, because they're quite tall, and we are going to install 2 of these abatement units, with space for one in the future if ever required.
Mick, do you know which type of air permit you guys are going for?
Say that again.
I know that there's already been a study there. So basically, Bruce Tripp put together basically an exhaust model. So I'd have to get the details of that for you, Michelle, but it's already a planned transmission.
So Michelle and Craig, Bruce Tripp, he put together the Title V air model, and we review that with the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for compliance with the Title V that we have.
Has that air permit been identified in your EAF, the need for that air permit?
Nick, do you know if that's
I
addressed?
don't
in
know
the app?
offhand. No, I'd have to get that information.
Okay.
I have a quick question on that, on the air emissions side. Will that impact the site any greater than what's currently site in terms of air emissions and restrictions?
Hey, Scott, I don't know about everybody else, but I couldn't hear you.
You repeat that?
Scott's question was whether or not the air emissions would impact any other current air restrictions on the site.
No, part of that modeling that Bruce Tripp does, it looks at the property line, and whereas the property line used to be 52 and 84, now the property line for the modeling is much stricter because it's the property line between Global Foundries and iPark.
So if I understand that right, then it's you're more confined now to some footprint that's been reduced because you're allowed emission footprint.
Is your allowed emission footprint shrunk now because of subdivision?
I can't really understand, Michelle and Scott, what you're saying. It's coming in garbled.
Is the allowed emission footprint smaller because of the subdivision?
It makes the restrictions on the emissions much more stringent, much tighter. And we've had to go with a relatively larger unit for that air abatement system, the 2 air abatement systems that's going to go into that 2nd-story building that Mick referred to. And I think you heard Mick say there that the unit we picked, it had to be super efficient. It is 99.9% removal rate.
Yeah, I've installed a lot of these units. You know, not in Malta, effectively, at the other Global Foundries site, and I haven't come across anything with quite this one. We were very limited in the vendors that we could choose that could meet our performance criteria. So it's a pretty good piece of equipment, and you know, it's high performance, as Bob mentioned there.
Nick, what is the byproduct of the emission that does go through this unit to be treated?
So basically, the byproduct is actually, when it's abated, it's crystallized. So basically, in the media that it passes through, it gathers on the media, and it crystallizes. So it's a chemical reaction within the unit itself. So basically, what you have is it takes all the contaminants out of the air as it passes through it, and retains it in the unit itself. And basically what you do is I can't remember what the duration is, but depending on how much you're scrubbing, you would change that media out as it becomes effectively clogged by the caustic. So you change out the media pretty regularly, depending on the maintenance criteria for the unit itself and its use.
But what would be the byproduct if it wasn't treated? Like what flows through that?
Oh, it's an acid abatement unit.
Okay.
So the primary one it would be nitric acid is the primary acid that's being utilized and being abated. And the other one being hydrochloric.
And how is that monitored beyond your monitoring?
New York performs periodic inspections. They review the performance criteria there for the equipment. They have us perform a test, an air monitoring test under their purview to validate that the system is working properly.
Now, are they reporting that information back to our township?
Not that I know of. I don't know that they report it back. I know that the information is public information and it can be sought out from the regulatory agency.
Okay.
Are there any additional questions for Mick or Robert? Okay, then I'll turn back to Mick or Robert. Do you have any questions for the board?
No further questions from me. Thank you very much.
No.
Okay.
And I'll just say thank you for your time and for you going through the trouble of making these special arrangements for us as well as the other town developers there. So thank you very much, and hopefully everybody stays healthy and well.
Thank you.
You too. You too. Michelle, did we need to do any circulation or anything for this one?
Sorry. We may have to do a circulation. I have to understand better about the air quality. The air quality permit should be identified, what they need and exactly what is going to be required. Title V permit is a pretty regulated permitting process, and it typically requires a lot of air quality studies before they can even get that, showing exactly what the particulate matter will be that will be released into the air. So we will need that information.
Do we want to start that process now to make a motion for lead agency, or do you want to hold off until you know better?
I think I'm going to defer to Michael on that one.
Have they submitted an EAF yet?
Yeah, I believe they submitted an EAF, but I don't think there was anything about the air quality in it.
So we won't even know exactly who to circulate to, so I think we'll have to wait a month.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's move forward to brumation, and if you could let Michael Cunningham know that you'll be speaking on their behalf. He'll make you a panelist so you can speak.
Michael Gillespie was here, then he disappeared. And he disappeared from both panelists and attendees.
Kevin need to unmute his line.
Hi, Kevin, can you hear us?
Yeah, sure can. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, Mike, he was around. I was just texting with him a little bit ago, so
He
hopefully.
came back now, so I'll try to promote him panelist again.
Oh, beautiful. Okay.
Came back and then tried to promote him panelist again, and then he.
So while we're waiting, this is on for discussion, correct?
Correct.
I'll just Michael Gillespie, can you hear us?
Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yeah. Whenever I tried to promote you to panelist, you got kicked off. So I'll just allow you to speak as an attendee.
All right. I listened to the whole one for an hour, and then as soon as it kicked to me, it clicked me off. So anyway, everybody's on. Kevin Brumation is with us.
Yes, Mike. Yep.
Okay. So good night or good evening. I hope everybody's staying safe and all that stuff. Tonight before you is actually an application which probably many of the planning board members have seen in the past, at least, you know, the initial phase on this. This is Brumation. Kevin Weaver, who's actually online with us, is the owner. We prepared a site plan for him back in 2016. This is off of Donovan Drive on about a 1.35 acre parcel. The initial building was a 5,600 square foot building that was constructed. In terms of the use, it's effectively, Kevin works, with brew pubs and breweries and so forth, assembling, what they need in order to brew. And Kevin can probably get into maybe a little more details if there's any questions. But when we had originally went in, we had kind of indicated earlier on that at some point there would be an expansion. So we had looked at, in terms of health department and some parking and drainage and looked at a lot of those issues earlier on to assure that, we weren't reinventing the wheel when we came in with phase two, which is effectively, what this is. What's being proposed is basically 100% expansion. We have 5,600 square foot now. We're looking at another 5,600 square foot. The space will be, limited to, again, assembly, storage space, things such as that. We did come in a few months ago relative to allowing some slight modifications to the interior layout of the existing 5,600 square foot building. There was also some storage containers that were placed on site, which are proposed to be removed as part of this. But in terms of a physical modification of the site, other than the expansion of the building, we're not proposing additional parking. We took a look at earlier on what the parking needs for the facility would be. He's been good with those requirements, those needs. We did a calculation based upon what the expansion would require, basically another 5 employees. If you add up what's there and what's being proposed, we're still under at least what his need is relative to parking. The other, again, physical change is there's some drainage that wraps around the existing building, which we're going to have to extend and put a new catch basin and some piping. But again, other than the physical building expansion and some relocation of the drainage facilities, from a site planning standpoint, there's not, any other changes proposed. I know with the initial submittal, we did provide some elevation drawings that were prepared by the architect of record. Again, matching the existing facade of what was proposed. While obviously this whole corona epidemic wasn't anticipated by anybody relative to this expansion, I think what Kevin's thought is to certainly move forward on obtaining the approvals relative to the expansion And then, you take a look at the state of business at such time and move forward as accordingly as you'd like relative to the actual build. And Kevin, you can comment on the state of business, where things are at, or maybe, interested in that. I know, again, with the initial build and so forth, it's been very successful. The board was great relative to the initial application that came in, moved through, at a great pace. And it's one of these successful stories of somebody doing well with a brand new business in town. So we're just looking to expand on that.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. We're we plan to move forward. We were planning to move forward as soon as possible is the initial plan. Right now we have to wait and see. Business is doing fine. We have backlog, and we expect a downturn, of course, but with the triple P and all that kind of thing that's happening, we expect to pull through fine. So it'll just be the timing of when we feel comfortable to pull the trigger on contractors and such. But we want to use the time here to get the approvals and everything in place that you folks require us to do.
So there was a note, I think Pete had some drainage issues for the site. Have you guys seen those, and do you have a comment on that?
I haven't seen any review comment letters. I mean, if they're available, that would obviously be great if they forwarded, so we can take a look at. As part of this initial plan, we had to we had to prepare a SWIP. The expansion was included as part of the thought down the road. So I think we may have to refile a notice of intent because we did close that out, not knowing when phase 2 was coming. But procedurally that has to be done, but I don't see that being a problem. I mean, there's been a slight modification in the regulations since phase 1 was originally approved, but I don't particularly think that it's going to change, the design of what we originally proposed. But I'll take a look at his comment. I don't have them.
Yeah, lost power.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry you didn't get that.
I guess just a question too. I mean, I think the only other agency that we particularly deal with here, it's East Fishkill Planning, obviously the health department. And again, there were some design elements considered earlier on the initial septic design to accommodate what we're doing here now in the future. We can certainly go scratch on their door and make sure that they're agreeable to the expansion and employee count and all that. And then DEC relative to the stormwater to Speedies, but I don't know of any other. I don't think there was any other agencies particularly involved in this. So I don't know how the board feels about again moving forward on this. It's kind of a strange time. I'm not sure procedurally how this may all work, but I don't necessarily know if it qualifies for a circulation. We did not do that as part of the original project. The next logical step, if the board is comfortable with what's being proposed, and I haven't seen Pete Sotero's comments, but if they're not too off the wall, and I guess Scott, if you've seen it, if you can comment on that, I haven't seen them again. Next logical step would be a hearing, but that would be a little unique in the circumstance that we have.
Yeah, I remember that this was all discussed with the original, but was that filed? I can't remember what was actually filed. I mean,
in terms of what filed?
In other words, I remember you showed us this and said, oh, by the way, this is just the first half, and then there will be this at some future date. The plan is to double the size of the building. I remember that, but I can't talk to whether any of that was filed with with the thing as like, the stated intent.
Well, the original site plan indicated a dashed outline that actually indicated the building for future expansion in terms of location.
I'm sorry, that was the question. Thank you, Mike.
So I think what we're asking is that your previous plans needs to be synchronized with the original, so that we're make sure everything is in order.
Okay, I mean, we can do that. I think, I think they are pretty synchronous as it is, unless again, you're looking at a letter that I don't have the purview to yet, so.
Hey, Mike, it's Lori. Do you, I think you said there's sufficient parking, but do you have a parking calculation or something? Can you just walk us through that real quick? Because it seems like we're expanding the building, but we're not really expanding any parking spaces. We're probably losing a couple spaces, right?
Yeah, so, well, actually, we're not losing, but I'll walk through it. So we did a calculation based upon the interior layout, and it required, phase one required initially, let's see here, 23 spots. That's what was required. Based upon actual need, we assumed that 12 would be sufficient, but based upon the layout of the parking and the access drive and truck maneuvers and so forth, we were showing a number of spots to be banked, okay? So we were actually gonna build out 13 and then leave the rest banked. 4 of those banked parking spots were actually painted on the pavement, so it was a paved area anyway.
It's already
so
paved.
that was fine. Yeah.
Okay.
Then there was spots 18 through 23, I guess on the right-hand side, if you're looking at the drawing, that were not supposed to be constructed. And for whatever happened in the field, because the trucks were out there and doing their thing, that they were actually constructed as part of the initial phase. So we basically have 23 spots that were proposed and constructed as part of the original building. Again, knowing that 12 would probably be the right number that we need. The planning board, I believe, granted a waiver.
Yeah, but Mike, you're saying that was what was required, but wasn't it a higher requirement, but you just didn't need it because of the way this use was going to be staffed or something like that? I thought there was a higher requirement for the square footage.
I have notes on the plan, which I'm just going through here. Again, we showed a total of 23, but we didn't need 23, we only needed 12.
But do
23.
you know what code requires? I guess that's what I'm asking. I don't see Michelle at her laptop, but maybe we can just double check with Michelle. Unless Michael, you know, I don't know what the parking is for this use type.
Well, there was a combination of a number of things. It was office space, warehousing and storage, and then for an industrial and manufacturing use as well. So there were three different types of uses, and we kind of looked at the floor plan and came up with the number that was required, okay? Which again, was on the range of I think, again, it was 23. I'm looking at the plan. We knew that we would only need about 12. 23 were installed as part of the original site plan. There are 23 spots out there.
Okay.
As
So
part of this,
Michelle, I see. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
as part of this expansion, okay, based upon the floor plan layout, it was determined, you know, floor plans are a little bit different. It was a total of 20, additional 21 spaces would be required. So total 23 plus 21, right, is 44 spots. That's what the code requires relative to this site, okay?
Okay, that's what I was getting at. So we determined, even though the code required something, the planning board had the purview to reduce that requirement based on your use, right?
Correct.
Okay, so Michelle, I don't know if you heard my original question. Have we looked at this expansion and we confirmed what the new kind of extrapolated number of spaces would be?
So I started looking at the parking, but I needed to know the employment number, and he just gave it to me this evening. So I know that there's 5 new employees. I do recall also that we had land banked some parking, and also that part of the problem I believe that was out there was that you had some storage containers that were covering some of the existing parking that was out there. And if I'm understanding the site plan correctly, those will be moved. and anything that was in that those storage containers will be put into the new addition.
Correct.
So I think Mike just mentioned that even though they had land banked, they ended up building it and striping it. So it doesn't sound like there's more land banked. And I'm not saying I think we need more parking. I just wanted to understand how we were documenting that for this plan.
So I'll do the total calculation now that I have the employee numbers.
Okay.
But if I remember correctly, one of the issues at the last time we were in front of the board was there was some concern about parking and circulation around the site. And I think that was related to the storage containers, but I have to look at the numbers now that I have his employees.
Okay.
I haven't seen a memo from Michelle's office or from the department. We provide for those parking calculations and actually on 2 places on the plan. And again, you know, this is now stood a little bit because it's been up since 2016. We're talking 3 years. It stood the test of time. You know, he doesn't have an issue with parking out there now. Things work. And again, with the anticipated increase in employees, you know, if we needed parking, if I think Kevin can chime in. I mean, if we needed parking, we would provide parking. It's not an issue of not providing for it. I think, you know, I think there's something to be said if the building, for some reason, 20 years down the road gets sold and the use changes, and I think that would require coming back to the board anyway, or at least the building department, then that's going to have to be reevaluated. Related to the use now, I think we're okay, Kevin, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We're, you know, we're probably looking at about 17 employees that'll be on site after the expansion. You know, of course, there's always potential, but you know, we do have other employees that are outside. We've put some of our sales force in strategic places in the country. So, you know, we have three folks that are outside of the office.
Kevin, are you planning? Is it just going to be one floor right now, and then you're planning to expand it up into the second floor later, or all three both at the same time?
The intention was to do the whole thing at once. You know, with the changing times, it could just be the one floor, but right now my intention is to do the whole thing. I really like all the space.
Okay, and so the employee number that you're saying, the 5 employees would take into consideration operation of both floors. That's what you end up doing?
Can you say that one more time? A little echoey.
The 5 new employees would take into consideration both floors, if that's what you end up doing?
Maybe you can use your phone.
I didn't get that. Anybody get that?
No,
I'll
I
say it
think
one more time.
it's echoing off of. Michelle, hold on one second. So Craig, I don't know if you're able to mute yourself, but you and your mic and Michelle's mic are competing with each other.
I just
Do it again, Michelle.
Michelle. Say it now.
I think it's Scott and Michelle, because Craig's muted.
No, I moved.
He only just muted.
And now I muted Craig, and so Michelle can speak now. We can try that.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle.
Okay, so my question for you, Kevin, and what I just wanted to confirm was the number of employees, that your 5 new employees, does that consider both floors? If that is that assuming both floors are in operation or just one floor is in operation?
Yeah, both floors. Actually, yeah, the upper floor is primarily storage anyway. So
Okay, perfect.
yeah, that includes everything.
Michelle, can you talk to the Pete Soteros letter? I mean, what was the issue? It was a drainage thing. I think it was the swale in the back.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
All right, so I just forwarded to Mike. Evidently, this letter dated the 16th from CPL's office, even though it was addressed to Mr. Gillespie, it looks like it has another engineer's email address on it. So that's why Mr. Gillespie didn't get it. But I'll go over the highlights. First item was just a comment on the EAF, no big deal. I think getting more detail on the sides of the building, drainage, water, and sewer. Number 2, another EAF minor thing. 3, the SWIP dated September 19, 2016, and watershed maps don't appear to include the proposed addition in the calculations. Therefore, the SWIP will need to be updated along with the erosion and sediment control plan. So according to CPL's review, I guess the addition is not included in the original SWIP. I don't know if Mike, have you reviewed that? Is that true or not true?
Yeah, we specifically went ahead and actually prepared this knowing that this was coming. We're gonna have to do it again, so I'll get that out, get the information to Pete, and we'll get that cleared up. Again, we had to, in order to not do it twice, we included it as part of that original, but there seems to be a kind of a miscue there. So I'll have a discussion with Pete, whoever's reviewing it.
So you clarify that. On the floor, the proposed storm drain on the east side of the building is too close to the building. This will be difficult to install unless it's installed in the trench for the footing. However, any future maintenance of the pipe is very difficult. So basically, I guess the existing pipe, are you going to reroute that around the building? You plan on running through the building? What are you going to do with that existing drain pipe that is partially into the new footprint?
Yeah, Michelle, if you bring up sheet 2, we provided 2 sheets as part of our submittal. And sheet 2 kind of details what we're doing with the storm drainage right now. The drainage comes from the south to the building, gets picked up in a couple catch basins in front of the building, and then wraps around to the right or the east, and then discharges to the pond in the rear. And I'll wait for that to come up. Is that sheet 2? Yeah.
I believe so.
That's it.
Second?
So what we're planning on doing is picking up, this shows the entire building with the expansion to the right. We're planning on removing the existing discharge pipe, which is shown kind of faint in the middle of the building. And then running that to the end, wrapping it around the building, and then discharging back into the stormwater pond in the rear. I see the point Pete's making. That stormwater pipe is a little tight to the building. We have a little room to kick that out, so right up against it. So I think for all intents and purposes, that's kind of a minor issue, but we can accommodate that. Yeah.
Okay. And then the last item 5 on this letter, will the expansion increase the number of employees? Question mark. Information needs to be submitted to determine the existing water and sewage disposal system capacities and whether health department approval is required.
Yeah, and I mentioned
about having worked with the health department.
Yeah, we'll make a submittal up to the health department, just verify that they're okay with what we're proposing and all that good stuff. So again, it was accommodated for an original.
Is the SWIP, right? Whether or not you got the building included in your original SWIP or your pond sizing calculation.
Right.
Then 2 things I'd like to add. Not quite sure I missed it, but refuse enclosure. I don't believe it's shown on the plan.
Okay.
Anybody hear me?
Mike, yeah, we can hear you, Scott. Mike, are you on mute again?
I'm here. I heard about the refuse enclosure. Yeah, if it was on the original plan, I assume it's generally in the spot that where we're proposing it. Kevin, do you have a full refuse enclosure out there?
No, but I believe we need to do that once we expand because we're going to be within the building distance. So we're going to have to enclose that.
Okay, so we'll get a garbage enclosure on the print.
And you got to figure out where. It may not be so easy. So you got to come up with a location. And right now he's got 2 dumpsters out there.
Yeah, that's right. We have the regular refuse and also the recycling.
But those are accessed from the front load trucks, right? Those are the larger units that the front discharge trucks pick up and dump in, right?
That's correct. Yep.
So you got to bear that in mind. You got to get that truck to pull straight up to those units.
Yes. Yep.
And then my only other comment that prior screening those evergreen trees to the south.
South, yeah.
On the daycare side of the property. They're doing well from about halfway up, but from halfway down they're dead. So the board may want to think about you having replaced those trees, and I don't know what happened to them, but they're only providing less than half the screening that I guess they're intended to provide.
Yeah, I'm not sure. The pine trees just don't seem to do too good. Maybe some bushes can be placed in there, some low-lying bushes to make up for it.
Michelle, maybe you take a look.
I can definitely,
Yeah, the bottom half of them are dead, the top half are thriving, so I don't know what caused that, but. It needs to be one of them.
Kevin, are they dead or is it a deer issue?
No, it's kind of strange. The bottom branches seem to have died off, but the top seems to be doing really good. My thought is that we can put some deer repellent bushes out there. I have something in mind, but I can't remember the name right now. But if we put a bunch of those down in there, that might just do the trick. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Okay.
Is there heavy water there where they're dying? Because a lot of times it's water stress that does that.
Not particularly.
There's a couple evergreen trees, I believe, at the daycare center, and they're fine right next door. Might be a different species, but.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
Hey, Mike, another question. I'm good with the parking and everything, but we did mention there was some, I think you had the trailer with some storage of parts and things like that. Do you anticipate with the expansion of the building that we need to set aside some sort of area on the plan if you need that type of storage again, or do you expect that all to be within the new building, new part of the building?
I think the intent, right now, those storage containers are on the site because they don't have accommodation for it on the interior. Once this expansion goes on, those will be removed, and I've actually got a note indicated on the plan that in fact is going to happen. They have to be removed.
Yeah, our intent would be to remove them and never bring them back. We'll have ample space.
Okay.
Okay, are there any additional questions from the board?
Yeah, the path forward on this, will we have to circulate for this, or is this?
no, we do not have to circulate. This is really, I think, a type 2 action. It's just an addition and it's less than, sorry. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Michelle. You have an echo, but we can hear you.
Yeah.
I said, no, you do not have to circulate.
And we don't need any further hearings or any of that, right?
Well, I presume that we would need a public hearing, but I don't know if it.
It's up to the planning board whether or not they want to consider this a minor site plan amendment. If they do, they can technically waive the site plan, the public hearing.
So Michelle, we would consider it minor because when the original site plan was approved, this future addition was already outlined and included on that plan. Is that correct?
So I was just thinking that it was actually shown as a potential expansion area with the addition shown, yes.
And there's no additional requirements based on them doubling the size of the building inside the building, such as fire protection or that other type of stuff?
Well, we'll have to meet New York State Building Code relative to the uses, you know.
Right, that would trigger those sorts of improvements, wouldn't trigger any additional review under secret.
I'm sorry, Michael, could you say that again?
Sure, so additional fireproofing and things of that nature wouldn't trigger additional review under secret for this application.
Okay.
So the only thing remaining that's open is the SWIFT, the sizing and the drainage.
Verification of the SWIP, yeah.
Right, okay, right.
So if that gets resolved in the interim, we could schedule this for a decision next meeting?
Yes.
I would agree, yes.
I do have a quickie, and not being too familiar with it. I know that there's not an architectural review board at this point. There's still an architectural advisory board. Is this formally submitted to them through the planning board for comment like the FAB? Do we have to make a presentation before them? How does it work at this stage in the town?
So we will probably have to call them up and try to get it sent to them, and we'll probably try to do it electronically. Michael, we had another one. We just sent them via email.
Okay. I caught half of that.
We will have to schedule, get you on the schedule for the architectural review board and do this as another Zoom type meeting.
Okay.
And try to do that.
But as I recall, I mean, the drawing was essentially a mirror of the other side. I mean, obviously there was displacement of doors and windows and stuff, but that basically it's identical in structure. It's not like you guys are changing the color or doing anything like that, right?
No.
Yeah, everything's staying exactly the same. Same finish, same colors, everything.
I mean, again, I don't want to, but I'm not sure what the architectural review board is going to do. Is if the plan is to mirror image the other part of the building, and that was discussed at the get-go.
Pretty much says it all.
Yeah.
And you're keeping just one loading bay, right? From the elevation drawings, I only saw one large oversized overhead door. Is that right?
Yes.
That's correct. We're just going to keep the same one we have currently.
Okay.
So, I mean, Michelle, you think that we still need to go to the ARB?
Yeah.
Well, I guess I'm wondering, can that not be accomplished before our next meeting so that we don't slow the process down?
Okay, so what you couldn't hear me before, but what I said is what we can do is we've spoken with the ARB about the circumstances, and I think what we can do is try to do sort of an email review from the ARB prior to the next meeting and just get their sign off on the building.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Okay, that works.
Kevin, congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the business
Appreciate
so
that.
far.
Well, and
We're trying to get the best through it.
yeah, good luck with the continuing
Yes.
difficulty there.
Although I did see that alcohol consumption is way up, thanks to the pandemic.
Yes, it is.
Let's face it, guys, it's all we've got left.
Absolutely.
Okay. So.
Okay, thank you, Kevin.
I guess.
Yeah, thank you all for putting this together.
Yeah. I
Stay
guess
safe.
what we can do is we'll address Pete's letter. We'll get that kind of buttoned up a little bit. We can make a kind of a fresh, updated, submission with a couple of those things that we talked about, moving the pipe and get the health department, get them rolling with a verification, and I presume that listen, it's all about getting into the next meeting with less conditions, right? So that's what we'll work toward for the upcoming May meeting. Right?
And Mike, just remember, so the refuse enclosure, and just let's make sure we have the parking calculation. Michelle said she wanted to look at the parking, so let's make sure we do that too.
Yeah. Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's Michelle. If you have any questions, certainly, but yeah, that is on print. So.
As far as the parking goes, Michael, I just wanted to confirm the number of employees, the 5 number of employees that you had on the site plan was both floors combined. That's all I needed to confirm tonight, and I did. So I'm confident because of what you explained that you have enough parking.
Okay, great.
Okay, thank you, Kevin. And we look forward to having you on the May 19th meeting.
Okay. Sounds
Okay.
good. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you all. Stay safe and all that. Okay, thank you.
All right, take care.
Bye now.
Before our last applicant is iPark Visitor Center.
Okay.
You can,
So now I'd ask anyone from iPark who's here to raise your hand. And I believe if you're calling in, if you hit star 69, it should work.
Mike Buckley here. How are you?
I now see a new person called owner.
Yeah, heard him very low.
Yep.
Good evening, everybody. How are you?
Good. How are you
Good.
doing?
Lynn is going to be joining us. Lynn, are you with us?
There are a few other panelists who didn't raise their hand. They called in. I can allow them to speak to see if they're here from iPark. Number 2527, are you here for iPark? Number 252, ending in 2527. Okay. And then there's number ending in 7737. Are you here for iPark?
Yes.
There's Lynn.
Hi, Lynn.
So it's 773.
Is that Mike McCormick?
No, I heard Lynn's voice.
Well, this is Lynn Ward. Hi there.
Kimberly Ryan is here from Liska McCormick and Boris.
Hello.
So do you have everyone you're expecting?
Yes, I believe we do.
Okay.
So good evening, and thank you very much for this opportunity, and we much appreciate everybody making such an effort on our behalf. I'm Lynn Ward for iPark. The bulk of this presentation will be done by our architect, Tim Ryan. Very, very briefly, this seems like a new topic, but it's something that we have been considering for a number of years. In fact, when we first acquired this property, the supervisor, John Hickman, said to us, people in this area have a great deal of interest in agriculture and food production. Think about it. Well, 2.5 years later, we have a new supervisor who basically isn't in the think about it mode, but in the do it mode. And so we're here with the actualization of that plan tonight. That is what we're trying to accomplish. I'm going to hand it over to Kim to detail it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I just want to say hello to everyone. Hope everyone is well and their families are healthy. What we're proposing to do, as you can see on the bottom, Michelle has displayed what the building looks like currently. It's an old IBM building, and we're proposing to create a visitor center and a food hub. So in that, we are proposing to add a 1,030 square foot addition, which is just an entry porch for a proposed brewery on the southwestern corner. On the rendering you see right now is on that far left corner. It's just a small little porch entry. It's a current loading dock. That's just a minor complement to what we're proposing to do. If you look at the food hub itself, that's going to incorporate a 3,526 square foot visitor center with a 2,197 square foot porch, including facade improvements and signage on this southeast corner for a number of various things that we intend to incorporate into the interior. So the interior alterations will be this brewery, mostly manufacturing, a bakery, manufacturing, and then the food hub, which would be some retail, takeout, food services that will support the entire campus. We're also incorporating some minor facade improvements in order to make the buildings look more approachable. We're doing some site plan improvements to make them more pedestrian friendly, adding parking or reorganizing parking. And then there's a little small bit that we're adding to the Jane Bakes, building 339, also known as building 740. There's kind of a discrepancy, not discrepancy, but there's multiple building numbers. So that's just a small little 828-foot expansion we want to do there, and facade improvements. If you look at the site plan, right now, Michelle, you have up R200. If you could put up the site plan, I would like to talk about that. I'm not seeing it yet. Is anyone seeing it?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay. There we go. Okay. So I've color coded the different occupancies based on what our tendencies are going to be. So in the light blue in the lower left is going to be the proposed brewery. In the peachy pink color in the middle is our bakery. That's Sprout Creek Bakery, not to be confused with Sprout Creek Creamery. We are fitting them up with a much larger manufacturing area so that they can produce their cookies and cakes on a manufacturing level and then have a small little retail window in the food hub. In yellow, you see that's our existing Jane Bakes. They're already in production, they're already functioning, they're already permitted. They have, in the future, a small expansion area, which is labeled future expansion. That's that 828 square feet. The green area is our food hub. That's where we're going to be putting out there our local farmers market and Ronnie Brook Farms and Sprout Creek and whoever else that, and later on Mike Buckley will talk about this, the business end. There's interior space and then there's exterior porch space where we will allow people to congregate and eat when our government allows. And then if you look in the lower right hand corner, which is pink, that's our visitor center. And that's where we want to bring our guests in, learn about our agriculture markets, learn about the history of agri in New York State. And it's going to be kind of a museum-like visitor center thing. And that's what we're adding on. We're adding on the visitor center and we're adding on the porch and a small little expansion to Jane Bakes. So I know it looks like a big project, like we're adding on 7,000 square feet, which we are, but it's support services for an existing building that's there. I've run the parking calculation numbers in that top left-hand corner, sent them so that Michelle could take a look at them. You know, we were very disciplined in making sure that we followed all of the requirements for what you're looking for parking requirements. We're also showing, it's hard to tell, but a little purple spot in the middle of the floor plan. We're adding public bathrooms that will service the food hub and the visitor center. All of the other separate tenancies obviously have their own bathroom facilities, but this is one thing that came up in one of our last meetings. You know, within the building, we will be addressing building code wise, obviously everything that's required. Parking wise, I wanted you to see the calculations, what was existing. What I evaluated based on the proposed tenancies, we are well above what is required. We've required more parking spaces than are required, and we've provided more handicap parking spaces that are required. So we are taking into account the southeasterly parking areas around building 338 and 339, also known as building 730 and 740, into account for this particular location. Also taking into account already the pre-approved gym fitness center that's also in this parking calculation. If you want to go to the rendering, the AR, Michelle, I want everyone to see what we're proposing to change up what's existing and what's proposed.
It would be the R200.
Yes, I sent that. If you all can see it currently on your screens, that's the A200. That's just the black and white line required by your requirement, but I would like the AR200.
It's just so your latest is R200.
That's
what?
Let's get that up. The rendering. Okay, so great. So the bottom two photographs depict the current conditions. It's a concrete panel building, steel structure. We have some corrugated metal siding, some louvers. And if you look at the top, what we're proposing, a metal siding, curtain wall, silo. We're trying to make it more inviting, more off the street friendly. We want people to feel welcomed. We raised the first floor plane from the last rendering that we sent you. We wanted the guests, once they came into the front door, that they would be on the same floor plane as all of the tenancies, because ownership, and we feel like it's more welcoming if you're not taking people up another level. You don't want them to feel like they're in a different type of environment. So through the site work and the grading, we propose to bring people up into the level of the first floor, which is approximately 30 inches off of site. And we're going to develop that with some really attractive landscaping and some pavers. Silo was added to try and incorporate Runny Brook Farms so that their concept feels welcoming. And we just want to make this feel like a really welcome place that our visitors from wherever they come from feel like this is a place that they're welcomed and they're going to learn something. And I want to turn things over to Mike to talk about the business end and talk about the business hours and how they feel like this is going to function within the community.
Can I just ask one question?
Sure.
Your proposition is to add, you're saying just 7,000 square feet to those existing structures, right?
Correct.
And does that include the actual overhang area where the...
Yes, it includes the overhang, the porches, the visitor center, the silo, the entry to the hopefully proposed brewery, and the small addition to Jane Bakes.
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
And Kim, what is the use? Is there a use in the silo or is that purely decorative?
The use in the silo on the ground floor will be part of the visitor center. And then the remaining of it will be decorative.
So John, what we anticipate in the visitor center is we've kind of looked at some models from around the country, and interactive seems to be the way to go these days. So, you know, we're imagining you kind of walk through that silo and you have some interactive stuff going on, you know, with different screens to help educate people on the local farmers and the agriculture in the area. That's basically the theme of the, you know, it's a welcome New York type of situation.
And this, I would just make the comment that I think this is great, because I'd always wondered how, as with the food hub mission for the site, you were going to make that transition from, you know, that IBM architecture, which is so cold and so sterile and so industrial, to try to get into commercial where the public comes in and you know, kind of interacts with the building. So my 2 cents.
This is
And
Michelle. I have a
Michael-
question. How are you planning to do the signage for the site? Are you planning to add this to the existing monument sign, or is there going to be separate signage?
Yeah, Michelle, so I think we need to have some additional signage in order to attract people to this area, you know, kind of, again, like a welcome of New York type of an area. So we're going to be working with the state on possibly getting some signs out on 84.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I'm assuming that you're gonna be trying to attract travelers coming off of 84.
So and then will you add additional signage at the site entrance as well? Is that what your thought is, or you would just put them on the monument?
That is, well, we're toying with 2 ideas right now, Michelle. Either changing the monument, going back to you folks with a change of the monument, or creating, you know, distanced, another sign, actually. The main thing we don't want to do is confuse people, right? So more than likely, we would rework those monument signs, or the concept of that area where the monument signs are, so that we can accomplish the goal of having it be an inviting place.
Right. So you'd have probably some wayfinding signs included.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we really need to rework the signage. It's not good. People are getting lost on their way to Sloop Brewery and things like that.
Now, what about some of the other entrances that are now currently closed into the site? Would you look to try to reactivate some of those to get people here more directly or quicker?
So the intention right now, Richard, is part of the security project with Global. We actually are consolidating down the security of Global to separate that from the public. So Gate 5 is going to disappear altogether, the gates there, and they will be into the campus within the Global properties. And then Gate 1 will remain open. So you're looking at Gate 1 and Gate 5. So Gate 5 is iPark Boulevard. And then Gate 1 is over by John Jay. It's Route 52.
Yes.
And then eventually, I just think it would make sense to open Gate 2 as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Will this primarily be family oriented or adult oriented? I guess what I'm asking is, anticipate like school groups coming in, or mostly tourist type?
Yeah, the intent is to have it opened on the, you know, to get started, we're going to be open on the weekends only.
Okay.
We're anticipating it's more of a family oriented type of situation, because we have ice cream. We'll do coffee. We're trying to do 2 tiny pop-ups with the CIA, and then we'll have 1 small, you know, 1,600 square foot restaurant in there. And then of course, so you could get your ice cream, you could go through, you take the kids through, you could do the interactive museum type of thing, learn about New York, and then, you know, you go in, you get your ice cream, you get your coffee. And then, we'll have a couple pop-ups in there. And then if you wanted to sit and spend some time, you have the restaurant as well.
Yeah, that's why I wondered if you thought it would be potential for like school trips or something like that,
So
when we're back to doing those things.
School trips is interesting. something we would have to talk about as a group, but that's an interesting thought.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're going to have a small museum. It's going to be, you said it's going to be hands-on and interactive. I mean, it might be a possibility. The reason I was thinking about that is with the parking layout, you may just want to make sure you have a space to accommodate buses.
Well, that we can certainly do there. That's a great idea, Larry. Plenty of room out in that parking lot.
Have you created a lighting plan as of yet?
So the parking lot does have lighting, existing lighting out there, and it lays into the plan very well. And I think we will do some uplighting onto the buildings, obviously, to give them a little bit of a showcase type of quality as well. So we are still, that's a work in progress as far as lights on the building.
There is a lot of existing parking lot lighting that we will maintain. But as Mike discussed, we do plan to accent the building, the additions, so that it's enhanced and very visible and pleasing to the eye in the evening hours.
We need to make this thing exciting. It's very dead at the moment.
Yes.
Well, you've done a nice job. The exterior looks much different than the existing structure, so.
It is. It's a good nose job.
It's a challenge.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the concept is, you know, the potential brewery, and that's a manufacturing outfit, you know, kind of a standalone. And then the bakery. We're very excited about having Jimmy the Baker here, possibly, you know, filming some of his stuff for TV. He does the QVC shows and all that stuff. So that'll be a lot of fun for us. And of course, who doesn't like an ice cream parlor, right? So Ronnie Brook will be manufacturing ice cream, but they'll also have a sales counter there, so you can look in and see how ice cream is actually made. And the bakery will create windows so that you can actually look in and see how the baking is happening as well.
And the rest of them will have YouTubes, which is a kind of walk-through show and tell.
Right. So the whole area is that's basically what it's set up for. It's kind of an education center and a destination for, you know, families to come and check things out.
So can we talk about our time frame a little bit? We're very encouraged to get under construction. And we understand that the governor has restrictions on construction, but we know that eventually they're going to be released. We would like to be approved and be under construction in July. And we would like to work with the board to hopefully find a way to make that happen. And anything you need from us, you know, just give us whatever you need from us to make that happen. But obviously, you know, we're trying to make it happen so that we can be open in the fall.
I'd like to actually be able to start the foundations in June and start to create the elevation changes out there. We have a really unique parking lot that was over pitched for years and years, and it did us a huge favor to get to these elevation corrections that we have to make. And we'd love to be able to get going on that in June if possible.
So, Michelle, what do you think are the steps towards that? I mean, not to put you on the spot or anything. Oh, look, Michelle responded by.
I'm sorry, I have to, you guys don't realize this, but I'm having to move my seat because they're filming my computer screen now because we lost the video screen, so that's why it's delaying me. I just have a question about the foundations that you want to start. Are those only the foundations for the new, that's only the new addition, correct?
Yeah, everything else is all set, Michelle. Yeah.
Okay, so there's no other, and it's the new addition and then that little bump out off of Jane's Bakes, is that?
Correct.
Okay. And so you want to start both of those areas of foundation and you're thinking in June?
If we could, yes.
Okay. So as far as, I think we can take, go ahead, Lynn.
there's a particular reason we're trying to do this, and it is the current circumstance, because we're trying to keep the momentum that we've had at this property that we've temporarily lost. So that's what this objective is. And hopefully the government will see its way clear to it too, because without that we can't.
Right. So I think, again, I think we have to pass this by the Architectural Advisory Council, which we've implemented a sort of a COVID process where we are talking to them by email. So we'll get those over to them as soon as possible for any comments that they might have. And I guess, we have to send around to the other intergovernmental, like the Fire Advisory Board and other departments. And then hopefully we could get you back on, one of the next agendas. Right now, I think the next one's May 19th, assuming that we can do another Zoom meeting on May 19th. And then hopefully we'd have the ARB comments by then and the Fire Advisory Board comments by then.
Michelle, could we ask to accelerate that process? Because if we're not shoveling in June, it's just gonna destroy this thing.
But May 19th would get you in shovel in June, correct?
Right, but so if we could get a yes at that point, but as far as the review board, architectural review board goes, when could we set something up with them for a question and answer?
We're gonna have to do it by email, Mike, because we've got a new process. So we'll try to get them to make any comments they have. We'll try to do that immediately. As soon as I can get them the plans that you sent me today, tomorrow I can forward them to them, and then they can just get us comments, because they're not actually meeting right now.
That's good, Michelle. Thank you.
Terrific. Yep.
The other piece is that I know that Lynn and I had discussed last time we talked about the traffic study, and we sort of like to get an idea, because we're going to be asked from DOT how much traffic you think this might generate, especially the visitor center.
So we're anticipating right now, as I say, we're going to be open on the weekends, and we were kind of playing around with some numbers, and we're thinking 100 to 200 visitors a day on the weekends. Now the staff is going to vary as well. If the brewery does go and the bakery is there, that's our full-time product, right? They're there all the time. So that's between the two of them, you have 10 to 12 employees. And then they'll be closed on the weekends. Then you'll have the showpiece. So you're talking tops 20 employees probably in the area at a time. But right now, we're looking at probably, just talking to other states that have done this stuff, 100 to 200 people per day on the weekends.
Okay, and then I know we talked about, Michael, hours. What were you thinking for hours?
Looking at 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at this point. So it isn't influencing. We do have some small shifts that work in the manufacturing, in the chip manufacturing on the weekends, but they are in at 7 and out at 3:30. So
it's very small anyway.
It's not a huge, it's not a huge population. It's on that side of house, it works out to about 16 people.
Okay, so as I think you guys know, because I've mentioned this before, we had a request by DOT to provide information about vehicle trips in and out of the iPark site, but also the 52 corridor in general. So we have not been able to have the meeting that we had scheduled originally because of the coronavirus. So we don't know what to expect that they may require from us. I think the trip generation is a good start. And when you say 100 to 200 visitors, is that actually based off of some sort of ITE manual rate, or how did you determine that? Is that just from anecdotal discussions with other folks, or is that actually an ITE rate?
Talking to folks in Pennsylvania, over in Massachusetts, and then up in Wisconsin.
So it is anecdotal, but we have in fact given an assignment to AKRF to research these numbers for us, and we'll have that in hand very shortly. We'll share that immediately.
That's perfect, because they're probably going to want to see that. just
We
because they're
should
gonna
have
want
that
it.
to think about it.
All right, perfect.
And Michelle, I think we're saying we're starting out as a on the weekends only, but I would assume you want to, especially in summer months and things like that, you're probably going to want to be 7 days a week or 6 days a week, right?
Right, this thing's going to evolve, and we don't want to have a disaster first, so we'll try it. Sloop Brewery did the same, just came in with weekends until we got it down, and then we can see if we can expand it into weekdays too.
Yeah.
And you have areas where you can expand parking.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep, we have good flat parking on lot 6, and then we also have around the mountain at 335.
All right, so if you could get me those the traffic stuff as soon as you can, and then I'll get you. I'll speak with the ARB folks. I'll try to send them an email tomorrow about this with the renderings, and they may come back and have some questions that I might have to speak with you about, but I'm not exactly sure what they're going to request at this point.
So Michelle, if they actually want physical samples of materials, we can provide that. Just let me know what they want, and I don't know how we do those submittals in this time period with the COVID thing going on, but we can certainly do the best we can to give vivid imagery, which we do have via digital, or if they want physical samples, we can do that.
Michelle,
So they typically do look at samples. We might be able to, I'll find out if he's going to want to see them, and we do have a Dropbox we could maybe have you guys drop them into, and then we could just leave them for Paul.
No problem.
Yeah, quite honestly, it's really simple, straightforward stuff that they've probably seen a million times. That we could actually, first shot, Michelle, what we'll do is we'll get you some pictures tomorrow. I thought we sent those over to you. I apologize. Of the materials we're going to be using, and if those are acceptable to them, or again, if you want to set up a Zoom with them, I would be more than happy to walk everybody through the materials that we're going to be using.
I don't know exactly, I'm not exactly sure of their ability with Zoom, but I can try to find that out.
Okay.
And I'll get back to you.
Okay. Any other questions?
This is just, I don't know that it's exactly a question, but it would, I love the layout and the look of it, but it just seems like the dark brown is kind of quieting versus like lively. I don't know if you've looked at any other colors.
Actually, the contrasts are, so the brown would more than likely go to black on the curtain wall and then the standing seam roof. And then we're softening more than likely with the posts, with fallen lumber on site that we've been losing because of the storms and whatnot. And we're going to start trying to figure out some of the other materials like the stone. We have stone walls on site. We'd like to dismantle those and reuse them on the buildings. So these are things we're looking at. And then the silo, we could go back to the drawing board on that tomorrow and decide what to do with that color as well. So the
I just think, maybe in a couple of places it would just pop a little bit more if you had a livelier color on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe like an earth tone, but still like a color instead of the dark brown.
How about a veneer?
Or maybe that iPark logo with the cow on it.
That was a lot of debate about that.
I have no idea.
I agree on the color, by the way. This is what I call public works brown, so it has to be lightened up.
I don't know if New York State has any preferred colors, or at the time. I mean, there's got to be something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
We'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions for the team? Okay. Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for the information you shared with us, and Michelle will be in touch with you to help move this forward.
Okay, so
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time and stay healthy.
It's my understanding
Good
that
night.
you're all happy with the project, and really what it comes down to is the fire review and the architectural review
And traffic.
and the DOT. Right. Okay.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody. Stay
Good
safe.
night.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay, that was our last applicant for tonight. Do I have a motion to close the planning board meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Okay, hey, thank you very much for your participation tonight. We definitely had some technical challenges, but we'll certainly overcome them. So take care, have a good evening, and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Good night,
Thank
Greg.
you, everybody.